staff and continuous professional development because they know it takes that. Here, we want to do it on the cheap. And that was part of the problem in Chicago. We want to increase the school day, but we don't want to pay you anything. You ought to do it because this is for the children. Everybody gets paid. You know, here we had a bailout of Wall Street. They almost set the economy over the cliff. And when we had the bailout, they said, oh, we still got to get our bonuses. He said, but you got bonuses before and didn't do anything. They said, but we need our bonuses, otherwise we won't do the work. You see. Now, when people in the public sector want to get paid, they say, well, you are greedy, you want too much. But the devil is in the details. It costs money to educate students.
Professor, one of those details is evaluating the teacher. In that evaluation, there's discussion about using test scores to evaluate teachers, peer review. Where does that fit in this?
I believe teachers should be evaluated. But my colleague, Linda Darling-Hammond at the Stanford Graduate School of Education, and a host of minority researchers across the country, it showed that the current value-added paradigm is not fair, nor is it reasonable. Because in one year you have teacher was excellent, and the next year they're terrible. And much of that is predicated on the poverty that we talked about, where the resources in the schools have changed. Because even when we're talking about poor students, all students are not poor in the same way. Many of them have strong parents, good values, good support, even when they're living in distressed environments, and others don't. And depending on the compensation of the class, that will have an impact on what the teacher's able to do. I was a teacher in a poor school. I brought, as many teachers do across the country, food to school before they had breakfast programs to give to my students, snacks. I bought clothing to school, all of that out of my pocket. Teachers do that all over the country. Even today, when we have school lunches, school breakfasts, and in some districts, school dinners. And so the issue is the devil, again, is in the details. We have to look at what are we willing to invest as a nation. Everybody talks about competition, but what are we willing to invest as a nation? I'll give one example. The School Building Commission.
Give you a quick example.
Was around billions of dollars got misplaced. Nobody went to jail. Nobody's asked for it. When they passed the Urban Hope Act last spring, first thing they said, we want to have these charter schools, and we're going to put money to build them. Right. Now, where's the School Development Commission money?
Well, we all want to know where that money is.
Right.
I mean, we you know that's one of the strangest stories in public education.
Where is the money for the schools in the public schools in the urban centers that are not being built? Yeah. I represent Trenton. I'm blessed like Troy. I represent the least affluent and the most affluent. And in Trenton, we have high schools that you can't use the majority of the common areas because of asbestos or breaking down or roofs caving in or other issues. Why is that? Why is that in New Jersey?
Certainly that building school money is still a big mystery. I want to go to you, Benjie, Wimberly. Share with us a little bit about your feeling about the thought about having smaller classrooms. There's discussion about having, some of the money be broke up in a way that there's smaller classrooms and there's smaller learning communities. What's your thinking on that idea?
I totally agree. I think smaller student-teacher ratios, you'll get a lot more accomplished. One of the major issues that you find in urban areas is when you have 35-to-1, 40-to-1, you have a lot of disciplinary problems. If you have students that are integrated from special education who have certain IEPs that involve behavior, and you may have just one paraprofessional working with them, it just is not conducive for everybody to learn. But the smaller learning environment, I think you will get more done. And the key is still, though, just to jump back to the teacher evaluation and stuff like that, you can have a ratio of 2-to-1, but if you don't have a qualified teacher that has not been properly trained to teach in these environments, it doesn't make a difference. So I think there should be more of an investment into making sure that not only do we properly train our teachers, that we recruit our teachers. Myself and Assemblyman, we had a discussion this morning in Women and Children children about recruiting more minority males into the educational profession. I think this is a major, major issue that New Jersey really has to look at. Because when you walk into a classroom and you don't have a man at home, but you have a man in front of you for 8 hours a day, I think that will make a major difference in their lives, be it Black or Hispanic, and a positive, you know. But so I think that's a major issue that we need to deal with.
And it's an interesting proposal because certainly the highest dropout rate is among minority Black and Latino males, the highest. And so for them to have a positive role model.
I think at
seems to make
ninth
common
grade,
sense.
50% of our ninth graders, and I'd probably be corrected, Black and Latino males would not graduate from high school.
Do you see that becoming a norm, though? It's just like dropping out is like an in thing in some cities. I mean, even good kids are dropping out. Do you see that? Do you notice it's just like dropping out is like
I won't accept it as a norm. I think it is a very unfortunate situation. I know many of our students who are coming from, you know, Caribbean in certain areas. A lot of those students, when I was in school, they went to work. You know, and they were forced to go to work because they had to take care of their families. Now, alternative learning for those, may it be online learning, may it be night school, may it be an alternative rebound program, we have to put those in place so they don't drop out and graduate within a timely manner. So some of these areas, we will not accept that it's just a fashion that you drop out, and I don't think anybody sits back, because those same kids that drop out at 15 and 16 are the same kids that are standing on the corner that may rob my grandmother, that sell drugs, that are pushing guns and doing everything else that they shouldn't be doing, that's going to interrupt with the daily educational process for
They're raising hell in the hood.
Basically, that's what I'm saying. Yes.
Let me ask you, Assemblywoman, there's a lot talking about money, okay? But at the same time, there's a strong feeling here in this state that some people think they're just being, these urban schools are highly funded, they have large budgets, and that their families are being overtaxed to the point that they're being pushed out of the house because of the money going to urban schools. How do you respond to that when you hear that kind of discussion?
I don't think that this is just an issue of the number of dollars. I think we need to look closely to see how many of those dollars actually get to the classroom to educate the kid. So we hear all this, you know, all this discussion about all this money that's going to Trenton, Newark, Camden, Atlantic City. And then we see that our kids have textbooks that are 3 and 4 and 5 years old. So there's something wrong with in some respects, how the money is being spent. But I'm also working in an environment with an administration that does things like disinvests in education, moves money around, makes it harder to get money, classifies in a number of ways so it can spend money or convince people to spend it in a different way, redefine poverty even in terms of who's entitled to lunch or breakfast in the schools. So I don't think that the discussion is about the dollar amount. I think we need to be looking at how we are spending the money. And I want to say one thing about all the wonderful countries that are doing so well in education, whether it's Estonia or it's Finland, which has an extremely wonderful and healthy educational environment. You're also talking about more homogeneous environments. This is a very heterogeneous environment, very diverse. And I think that the elephant in the room that no one really still wants to talk about, in fact, we even refer to it in the post, way, is very much impacts how we have expectations of our communities and of our education system. And that is the issue of racism. Racism is a real, alive, and thriving in this country. And we need to not shy away from talking about it and using it as a positive platform for change.
And I'm sure we all know, even with a black man in the White House, that racism certainly is alive. Well, what I want to do is just briefly kind of go and get a real brief answer now on it, because you kind of touched on it, the value of state takeover. Has it been a good thing, a bad thing? I mean, it's controlling, as you know, the budgets of about a number of large cities, and even where there's not full takeover, there's a monitor in place. State takeover been a good thing. I'm gonna start with you real quick answer.
Okay,
now.
14 years in legislature, before that 28 years in government. State takeover doesn't work in municipal government, and it doesn't work in our school districts.
I'm going this way. I'm coming to you though. State takeover, good thing, bad thing?
There's been no evidence that can effectively say that it has been a good thing. As I said, grew up in Willingboro, which has had a state monitor for some time. I can tell you, whether we had a monitor or just our superintendent, school performance values didn't change anyway, so I would tell you no.
Okay, state takeover.
I believe in democracy. I think all parents and communities should control their school district.
Oh, and you're saying because
I'm very clear. I believe in democracy. We should have
and
control
that's
of
not
our
a
school
democratic
districts.
situation if the state just takes it over, right? Okay.
That's what
all
it
right.
is.
All right, state takeover, good, bad, brief comment.
Terrible.
Huh?
Terrible. In every place that it's been tried, it hasn't produced better results or better management, although the state is managing it.
And we need to keep that in mind. State takeover, good, bad.
State takeover has been a disaster. It's become big business in the wrong cities.
Okay. All right. Now we'll start with you, Assemblyman Wimberly. Share with us what you think might be one of the most noteworthy things that Governor Christie has done. We're going to talk a little bit more about politics as we come to the end of the show.
That's hard to think about.
And at the same time, I'm going to also ask you to give him a grade. Now I need a short answer. If there's anything noteworthy, yes, no, good, bad, and I want you to give him a grade.
I think the most noteworthy thing I've seen Governor Christie do is his keynote address at the Republican Party. When he said I so many times.
You mean the National Democratic Convention?
No, the Republican
Convention,
Party.
Republican Convention.
It catapulted the Democratic convention for Barack Obama to be elected for 4 more years.
Yeah, we did have a good convention thanks to them having such a terrible one. You didn't give me the letter grade.
A letter grade?
Yeah.
Incomplete.
Oh, incomplete. All right. Moving on. Round the five. Most noteworthy thing Governor Christie has done towards education.
I can't think of anything.
Can't think of
and
anything.
and I say that.
I need a short answer now.
Right,
Short
right,
answer.
yeah, and I say that having examined the New Jersey public education system for 10 years, nothing, and the grade would be F.
A letter grade. All right, coming to you, Kevin Jenkins. Most noteworthy thing Governor Christie's done for education.
I'm basically one of the non-political people up here, but my focus is to get. I don't.
They don't want a disclaimer from you. Go ahead.
Right, the grading of Chris Christie, as opposed to all of our other policy advisors and policymakers at the state. You know, I'm trying to get to where we start our grading system. Is it an F entirely? Are we creating the right policies at the state to drive urban education reform?
All right, short answer.
Short answer. I don't have an answer for
Grade.
that. No answer.
Incomplete grade. Got to give us a grade.
Not an answer at all.
Grade. Troy Singleton.
The most noteworthy thing the governor has done is he signed my colleague Bonnie Watson Coleman's bill dealing with drug courts, because he said, and he said it eloquently, that we no longer have the luxury of throwing lives away. You can't do that. And he signed it. He came to that dance, but the ringleader, the musician of that dance, was Assemblywoman Watson Coleman, led by our speaker as well, Sheila Oliver, who made sure that this was a forefront issue. So on that issue, the governor did a good job. He hasn't done a lot of good jobs on anything else, but on that issue, since we talk holistically about our society, he did a good job.
Quick grade.
I will associate myself with Benjie. He would get an incomplete.
Incomplete. Okay. All right. Bonnie Watson Coleman. Quick.
Thank you, Troy. I think his most notable thing is that he has mastered bullying, lying, and manipulating. And I give him an F.
And quick grade.
F.
Okay, F. All right. Now, let's talk about our presidential candidates. One who is currently serving in the White House, President Obama. Many people know President Obama was very high on something called Race to the Top, okay? And there was a lot of funds raised and related to that. But what does him compared to Mitt Romney mean to the state of New Jersey in urban schools and urban situations, one versus the other, if they're elected, and him re-elected and Mitt Romney possibly being elected president? What would that mean to urban education, and how do you see it based on their views? Bonnie Watts, starting with you. Short answer. Moving along. We're in the lightning round here.
Mitt Romney will take us back to where we had no freedom, we had no destiny, and we had no expectations of being anything other than underclass. All right. That's where Mitt Romney takes us.
And how about President Obama?
President Obama comes from us. He comes from a working family with high expectations, and he is a story of what can happen if the American dream works for you.
And really talking about it from an educational standpoint, Mitt Romney versus
I
President
think
Obama.
Mitt Romney would be absolutely disaster for public education. He cannot relate to public education. When you talk about the 47%, I said it's not the 47%. He was talking about the 99% he was really talking about. The number was off. I think for the future of our children and education, It would not work. He doesn't understand how this part of life or the other 99% live. And I think it would be a total disaster.
All right, let me give you some examples. We move on to the same grading, same situation. You know, most people know that President Obama does support charter schools. Most people know that Mitt Romney has been critical of dollars and donations coming from unions that go into public campaigns. Just respond quickly. Obama being reelected, Mitt Romney possibly being president, its impact on urban education.
I think if Mitt Romney is elected president, he will privatize America, period. And if President Obama is reelected, it will, I think, enhance opportunity, because the Republicans would then have to back off some of this right-wing craziness.
Thank you, Professor Farrell. Short answer, President Obama versus Mitt Romney. Impact on urban schools.
President Obama is pro-choice, pro-education for our communities. We support anything Obama